So we're live with episode number 5 of Lou Pickney Plays Total Extreme Wrestling 2020. And I don't even know what to say about the horrible news about the death of Hana Kimura, a 22-year-old star from the Stardom promotion in Japan who has lost her life. And you look online and you see one wrestler after another that talked about their experiences with her and how she had this infectious smile and how beloved she was. So it's with that in mind I'm playing. So if I seem less enthusiastic than normal, then I hope you understand. Alright, as far as the show goes, it took a while to finally get there, but in the last episode we had our first actual show. So here's the card from the last show. Main event, Chris Hero beat Heath Slater to win the Launch World Championship. And those two end up having a very good chemistry together, so at some point relatively soon I'm going to have to line them up for a rematch. We had what served as de facto semi-final matches for the Launch World Tag Team Championship. In one match it was Hawkins and Ryder beating Primo and Epico. And then the other was the Revival / FTR. And they defeated the team of Gregory Helms and Shannon Moore. Now the crowd did not respond well to quite a few people that I had. And that includes one half of the main event for this upcoming show, because I'm still going to have the tag title match as my main event. Revival against Hawkins and Ryder. While the game recognized, or it showed as if the fans recognized Hawkins and Ryder as being popular, certainly as much, if not more so than anyone else in my roster. And yet the fans didn't seem to let me see exactly what it said. It's an unhappy crowd for the following. I think these are mostly alphabetical order. I can bring up my roster screen while I go through this. So of these individuals, and some of these were people that were sent down to me, I guess I should explain for anybody watching for the first time. I'm playing as a company called Launch Wrestling. It's an all-men's promotion. Oh, hey Spiderborg, hey, I'll get to that in just a minute. I'm playing as, I was actually just explaining it, so I guess I can go ahead and do that again. I'm playing as a company called Launch Wrestling, and it's an all-men promotion. Hey Coco, how's it going? But yeah, so and the way I've got it set up, and I can probably pull that screen up and demonstrate or display it easier that way. Or maybe not. But essentially it's what I think would make sense for AEW at some point down the line to do is actually have some feeder promotions, place where some of the younger talent that needs the reps, the in-ring, and have a chance to work at a bunch of different levels. So you have women with experience working main events before they come in and get the big push in AEW. I think that's been a challenge just because of the nature of the way that pro wrestling, particularly in the United States, has been, where unfortunately for the longest time women were just treated like sideshow attractions, like this is like the novelty match or whatever, as opposed to being serious athletes. And whether you're talking about, I mentioned this before, whether you're talking about Bayley versus Sasha, that awesome feud they had in NXT, where you're talking about women's wrestling in Japan, it's, but ultimately having that experience to know how to work a main event, when you learn that on a smaller scale, it should in theory help you on the larger one. So the parent company is AEW. So, and this is something that's new for 2020, in that previously this wasn't possible, where you could play as the child company with the computer, the AI, as the parent company. So I've got, I guess I can pull up the list of companies. So Sharp is the one and I just let that, all I did was that very 90-second logo I threw together for them in paint.net, and thinking, okay, let's see how the computer handles it. Yeah, so this is something that I didn't realize how many people wanted this mode until I was looking online from just trying to find new stuff about the game, and I ran across something I think on Reddit from last year, and they were talking about how that was something that people had wanted, that to be able to play as the child company where you control the child company, but it's an AI-controlled parent company. So it's interesting. They assign, so they've assigned for Sharp. This is, again, that's the AI also handles the women's promotion. I thought, let's see how this works, because it's, for me, as much as anything, learning how this mode works and finding out what's new for 2020. And the more I dig into it, the more new stuff I find. So that's a good thing. So AEW ended up signing Allison Danger to be as their CEO and booker. Now, for me, I played the game. I created one for myself because I really am a sports broadcaster. So I'm the booker. And it was very amusing to me because AEW, of their own accord, brought in Dave Prazak to be the CEO. And so basically, he's the bad cop that's got to tell me the bad news from the management in Jacksonville. But been able to use him in a couple of different ways. But ultimately, he's the CEO, so that's his job. He's my boss, really. But had him introduce the show for the first episode, and I already got something kind of mapped out for this upcoming show that involves him as well. But we're still listed as insignificant. We had a show, we're number 20 out of 21 now. Our first show had 12 people there. But that's just how it starts. Even though you've got some named talent there, it's just the way it's set up. And you'll notice up here in the top left, or top right, excuse me, where it says negative 66,000 plus. Now that resets at the beginning of each month, as I understand it. And a lot of that has to do with hiring people. These are all handshake deals that I've lined up, but also if you're going to have a live show, you're going to have inherent costs. And that's something, I was talking about at the beginning with Hana Kimura, just absolutely heartbreaking. 22 years old. And I don't know, I was almost lost for words trying to make sense of it, because there is no making sense of it. Yeah, it's sad. Luckily, I never saw the photos that she posted on her social media, but I read the reactions of people that saw them, and it was not good. Like I mentioned from the outset here, if I don't sound particularly enthusiastic, that's why. It's as much as this game can be a wonderful escape, news like that it's just horrible. As far as how took her own life. And at least that's from all indications. She was on a reality show in Japan that's somewhat similar if you've ever seen Big Brother. And that's just a show that's not just in the US, but started in the Netherlands. And, the whole notion, which was very much a novelty 20 years ago, that, being able to have a house with people in it, real loud personalities and that sort of thing. So this is something house. I'd have to look it up to remember the specific name. But apparently there was a lot of backlash to something that happened with her on the show. There's some sort of a confrontation with her and someone else in the house. And the bullying that she got online, apparently, I didn't see any of this firsthand, so I'm just telling you what people have said when I've read about it, was that it was just his fears. And so here's this girl, 22 years old. Meanwhile, she worked everywhere from Madison Square Garden to Tokyo Dome and had this amazing future in front of her. And now she's gone. And as much as I think with the people I know who are celebrities, I think that it makes sense for them to use social media as a one-way device. Look at what John Moxley, I don't know Moxley, but I'm saying, look at him. He uses it as a way to get certain things out he wants to, and that's it. He doesn't use it as a communication device. If he actually reads stuff that's sent to him, he no-sells it, basically. He doesn't respond. But easy for me to sit here and say what somebody should or shouldn't do. But ultimately, though, just... there are no words. Just really heartbreaking. So as I was saying, though, with the company that I'm running here, it's the child company. So they're actually one of two child companies, launch being me, and then Sharp, the one that I created just as the AI-controlled child company. So that's getting up to and it'll be interesting to see which wrestlers the company targets and how they want to develop them there. They've sent down 5 wrestlers or 5 workers for me to be able to help develop. 4 of them are male wrestlers, because it's a guy's company. There's not even the idea being, as I mentioned before, that you'd have a separate women's company where the women could learn to work every spot on the card. And, I think that would actually be in real life their best bet. Really something to consider. But so I've got PB Smooth, Josh Briggs. I guess that's out of order. Donovan Denhausen and Jimmy Lloyd. The 5th is Alicia Fox, but they've sent her down as a manager. So I've gone through, and I'll lay up the card here in a minute. I guess I'll have to advance to the following Tuesday, so that may take a little while, but hopefully not too long. So my thought with Alicia Fox, I've been trying to figure out what I'm going to do with Connor from the Ascension. So I signed him. I didn't want to have the Ascension brought in together. I thought, okay, here's this guy that can go in the ring, but his interviews or his microphone skill or entertainment, whatever in the game, he's not all that high. So, well, how do we reestablish him? So I'm going to see how it's going to be with Alicia Fox as a manager of Connor. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. The nice thing with this being a child promotion is that it's developmental. So there will be things that won't go right. There will be things that, mistakes will be made, because you'll have younger talent that inevitably is still learning, and then the veterans in there as well, but it's not the top crew. But with that said, I do have a pretty strong roster right now. I'm going to go through in just a moment and try and bring in, I think I got 3 spots to fill for this upcoming card. And just to bring it as a one-off. A lot of these you start on a handshake deal and it just goes on indefinitely, but you can also negotiate for shorter terms. ACH. Look, I've got the Revival, or FTR. Okay. way this next card's going to be, the main event's going to be FTR going up against Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. And I realize that Hawkins and Ryder won't use their WWE names when they're out of the company, when they are able to start working elsewhere. But my approach has been that there aren't alter egos that had like his shoot name on there, then I'm just going to stick with what they have. It's similar to what I had with Fire Promoter, where I knew of Dean Ambrose when he was John Moxley before, but the way the character was made in Fire Pro, and that's the UI there is such a hassle to have to deal with trying to change anything, especially in Fire Promoter mode. I just kept it. And ultimately, you got the idea who we were talking about, whether it's their WWE name or their indie name or their shoot name or some or all of the above. But you see the popularity, 55s. And right now, Southeast is the one that is of particular interest for me because that's where my promotion is based. As if I were to have it, because if I were to do this, I'm trying to do this as realistic as I would if it were real life. I live in the Nashville area, so I would say, yeah, Nashville will be the base. But Southeast gives you latitude. You're driving distance to a number of places. And plus, if somebody from the main office in Jacksonville wants to meet with someone, especially if the crew from Jacksonville will be up in Atlanta, Nashville to Atlanta is not that far of a drive. Like 4 hours, give or take. Depends on traffic. By way of Chattanooga, Tennessee. There have been things I've discovered, and the more that I play this, the more I discover elements from the last game that has been either renamed or revamped. But we used to have the roster overview, now it says contracts, and that would be slightly misleading, but it actually makes sense. You'll notice a lot more information here as far as, and this is where having the wider rectangle, you can fit more space. Now, that also is like a big wall of data with a lot of this, but you can sort it. Right now, almost everybody I have is considered a major star, but that's because my promotion is like from the beginning. Oh, the music, am I getting drowned out again by the music? Thank you. Let me double check something here. Turn this up in my ear. It's gonna be way loud. See, it's a little weird with this because I'd rather have less music or even no music versus having it drown me out. But thank you for letting me know. If that still is too loud or whatever, then easy enough to adjust it. It's just I can't hear myself in my headphones the way this is set up. If it were set up where I could, it would be on like a second and a half delay, which would drive me absolutely crazy. And unfortunately, that means having to deal with the music being adjusted properly. Sometimes a bit challenging. Thank you. Okay, good. It's good to know. And again, I want to err on that being more quiet because the idea is, I mean, it's just the millionaire music. I put that on a loop, but it's there to accentuate, not to overlap or overwhelm. It's just weird because I can't hear it myself, which the radio guy, the TV guy in me does not like that, but that's the way it is with this particular setup I have. And I'm sure there's a way it can be done to not have it that way, but for now this works. So as I was saying, it may be tough to hear, but I was saying before is how there's a lot more information here from a sheer volume of data standpoint compared with the roster overview from before. Now, they no longer have it listed as far as like where you are in the card, your main event or upper mid card or mid card, etc. That has gone away, but it has perception. And again, because I'm such a small promotion right now, I mean, I've run one show in front of 12 people. So it's going to take some time to get established, even with the big names. That's just the way this is set up. But there are so many things that I don't know. Like, at what point will AEW want to bring up some of these wrestlers that I have that I signed? That was their money, but I signed to a contract with my company, which is Launch. Although I say my company, it's a company that I'm running as opposed to owning it. So it's a very different dynamic that has never existed in this series ever. This goes back a long ways. And so I know people that, from what I've read online, there are people that were very much looking forward to this. And you'll notice the momentum, it's not that much different from, like, you know, minor positive, major positive, neutral. You still have neutral, but it's just now it's more like hot and cold. So far, so good with morale, but we've only just begun. You can also sort it by contract style. This has a very good way of remembering the last search you did. Even like if you leave the game and come back, it remembers what you had the last time. And all you have to do is hit reset and it goes back to the default. I thought they were all under some sort of a... This doesn't list everybody. This is odd. So I had Alicia Fox. Hope she didn't just disappear. That would be bad news. Okay, I guess they just have not actually put Alicia Fox in that official listing with the rest of the crew they've sent down from AEW to work for Launch. The product itself is very similar to what the game has set up for AEW, which would make sense if you're the developmental territory. You'd want that to emulate the main company, the parent company, as much as possible. I got rid of the face-heel divide because I don't like that at all. I mean, I like having, you know, people you want to cheer for and people you want to cheer against, but I prefer the New Japan style format where it's almost like if you're playing Red Dead Redemption 2 and, you know, if it's in the middles where you start neutral and, you know, if you're doing good thing, good deeds, you move up, and then if you're more of a Rudos, more of a heel, then you go in the other direction. It gives you a lot more flexibility as well. Although I try to keep in mind wrestlers where it lists if they're more of a natural heel versus a natural face, and try and make that at least make sense as much as possible. And that's the big one that I changed from it. The rest I left. Aside from that, my promotion has no women's wrestling, but there's an entire different child promotion that exclusively handles that. So now at this point, I'm gonna try something here. I have just a part of this game that lets you put stuff in, you know, notepad form, but I have my own way of doing that and have for a long time. So I have to remember when I hover over something here at this bottom of the screen. Like if I cut it down, or my mouse is too low on it, it actually gets cut off from the actual video that you can watch streaming live, because it only has this box in play here because TEW 2020 does not play very nicely with OBS Studio. And the workaround is just having it put in the right top right hand corner and set the dimensions on that, and it's not that difficult, but it also means I have to be careful. Anything I open up wide is going to cover it up. I'll demonstrate, but I'll just go ahead and pull this up right here. So that's, you see the basic idea. I think I put that about Hana Kimura. I remember to talk about it, but I wasn't going to forget. So that's why I don't have things that cover that up on the screen there normally. I'm just going to take this part and paste it, but I will, I'll pull it up. So the idea essentially is that Tag Team Championship, Revival is going to win it. That's how it's going to be. I need to bring in somebody probably as a one-off. The team with Cain Velasquez, because we're setting up this program with Drew Gulak and Cain Velasquez. Slater lost to Chris Hero in the match to determine a world champion on the first show. And you might think, well, it's Slater. He was, lower, undercard with WWE, but within this game, he seemed to have, just like he probably will in real life when he finally gets a chance to do his thing outside of WWE. Now, granted, like with Heath Slater as with others, he won't have that name because WWE owns that name. But that's what we're going with for now. So I'm going to see how they're going to make it as a team with Slater and Gulak. And so, Cain Velasquez right here. And I need somebody I can bring in to put over. I'm not sure which one I'll have to get the win yet. I have Slater. Because with Slater, I need to reverse his momentum a little bit, I believe. I'll get back to that in a minute, though. So that's the semi-main. The Sprint Championship is it's pretty basic. It's the only secondary title I have. I've got a world champion on the singles side, a world tag champs. We're going to crown tonight for the first time on the tag side. And then the sprint title, and that's it. The sprint title, it's kind of a hybrid of something from CMLL. We have these flash matches where there's a 10-minute time limit. That can be very exciting. I take that concept and kind of meld it with what Smoky Mountain Wrestling had with the Beat the Champ TV title. The difference, though, with the Smoky Mountain title was if you had 5 consecutive successful defenses, your reign just ended, and then they would have a match to determine a new champion. I'm so glad there's a cough button on here. I just hit this little icon. I don't have to click anything. I had some fun the other day streaming Super Mega Baseball 3 on my PS4. The only the streaming I do is from my computer, but in that case, because as it turned out with Super Mega Baseball 3, it played much better on my PS4 versus on my personal computer, which doesn't have any sort of special video card, and it definitely showed. But it works out well. I can stream from my PS4 just fine to Twitch as well. But it's a little different. Alright. So, I need somebody that can, I'll bring in as a one-off. I've already, as you can see, I've got some ideas up here. Thus far, I had to have at least one storyline by the end of the first show. So I started I guess I can go over the results right here since I've got this. As you can tell, I've taken some copious notes. So very quickly go through the last show. It was Hero and Slater hit a 71 rating. And you gotta remember, I was starting the show like 30, 33, 34. Did not expect to see that happen the way it did, so I was happily pleased to see that play out that way. So, the de facto semifinals. There's a way you can set up within the game to have a tournament, but that's brand new, and I was less concerned about that, more concerned about getting this set up as cleanly as possible, get everything established, and then at some point I'll learn how these tournaments work and if you can really space them out over multiple shows, because I'm not sure about that. I mean, there's a lot to this, so there will be stuff I'll continue to dig into on down the line. So the Sprint Championship, the idea is it starts out as vacant, had Leo Rush and ACH. And the idea was if it's a 10-minute time limit, and if you go to the time limit, the champ retains. In this case, there's no champion, and had they gone to a time limit, the next week, the title would remain, what's that WWE phrase, in a state of abeyance? Ridiculous verbiage they have there. It would still be a vacant title, and you have 2 new people come in to challenge for it. So there's definitely that encouragement for wrestlers to be a little bit more aggressive in a match like that, knowing if it goes the time limit, there goes their opportunity at the title. And the caveat as well being that the title's defended every week. It's not a TV show because the way this is set up, it won't let you have a TV show, but you can just run events on the same day at the same time every week, so it's just as well as having a show. But it works. So, Lio Rush that beat ACH to win the title, and Rush will be defending that championship tonight for the first time against Fred Yehi. Now, Yehi, there's a chance I'm taking there because with Yehi, he's on that unhappy crowd list. Is that but bad and great for the chemistry? Although that can be looked up very easily, but I was trying to take some notes just to get everything established as well as I could in my head before I plan some of this out. So there's a chance that maybe Fred Yehi won't resonate with the crowd. We'll see. I mean, Lio Rush is going to go over, but we'll get to that. So the six-man tag, you had Velasquez's team getting the win, although Gulak wasn't pinned, so that was the start of how that program is going to play out. Big Cass, I'm starting him into a feud with Cody Hall, Scott Hall's son. I'm not sure what to expect with that. I mean, I know that his match with Leo Bryan was not good at all, but it also listed as having bad. It's funny, I start to point at the screen as if you could possibly see me pointing, but luckily there's a mouse, so it makes it a little bit easier to do it that way. With every match, I try to have it where there's a purpose to it. Say, okay, now we've got Jesse Goddard and Kenny Doane as a tag team, so I don't know how far we're going to go with them, but for now we've got them. Unfortunately, they're also on that unhappy crowd list. But that's a relatively new element as well to the game, as far as, I mean, the game has always had it where there will be certain people that won't resonate necessarily the way you want them to, but for it to flat out tell you the crowd is unhappy with them is a bit new. But Yehi got a win over Garrett Bischoff because there weren't a whole lot of options as far as available wrestlers for like the one night only kind of thing, similar to what they had in Total Extreme Wrestling 2016 and before. So I've got some ideas for people to bring in the team with Cain Velasquez, although it has to be somebody that's going to not insist on having creative control, because I need them to do the honors. If that doesn't happen, it messes me up because Heath Slater, I'm probably have him actually win the fall. It seems though that the game, and this set would be an improvement if what I seem to have perceived is actually true, that it doesn't punish other wrestlers on the team in a multi-man tag match, like a 3-on-3, a 6-man tag, if one of their partners gets pinned but they didn't actually drop the fall. Which is going to make it, I think, a lot easier, if that in fact is the case of how it will play out. I think it'll make it easier for a company like New Japan Pro Wrestling, where a lot of times you'll have like, a 6-man tag that'll have 2 stars on either side, and then like a young lion or a lower card guy, somebody that is the designated guy to drop the fall. But if both teams have somebody like that, then you don't necessarily for sure how it's going to play out. And they can do all that, and then it's an upset that, one of the regular main roster guys pins another. Oh, thanks for the hosting, Coco. I appreciate it. So I was saying, I have to find somebody that can team with Cain Velasquez that will have a good match in the semi-main. Oh, thank you, Crystal Prepsy. Appreciate it. So, as I said, there are three things. The first part, to find a partner, and that's the most important because I want somebody to be able to go. And as much as Rob Van Dam, at this point in his career, is not quite as fast as he was 20-something years ago, but time waits for no man. But at least listen to him because he's a possibility. Like, I don't know if Austin Aries would agree to come in without having some sort of creative clause, or creative control clause. Jonathan Gresham works for like 4 or 5 different companies right now in the game, but because it's something that's like the Ironclad exclusive on days where he's available, at least for now, I'm able to book him potentially. Eddie Edwards, TJP, Rob Van Dam, Rich Swann, a lot of good possibilities for that spot. Although someone like Rich Swann, I almost don't want to bring him in for this because when I do bring him in, I hope to at some point, I want him to get like a strong push right out of the gate. At least that's the mindset. Now, the second thing I need to find, and this is, I mean, I don't know how it's going to go with Alicia Fox as the manager for Connor. I realize that that's unconventional, but I mean, what's conventional about this anyway? The fact that I'm playing as a child promotion as the human player with AEW controlled by AI, the computer, something that was never before possible in this series. And because it's me, I have to throw that extra twist to it. I mean, the reason I have an all-male promotion is not because I don't like women's wrestling. I love great women's wrestling. It'd be fantastic. And to me, there's going to be more of an opportunity for women to learn how to work all the different spots on the card, which will make them that much more well-seasoned and give a lot more latitude, at least in theory, for the talent that comes up. But some of that becomes a matter of opinion and a matter of just what you think works best for your show. I mean, if I can have a show and have a great women's match on it, yes, that's awesome. In this particular case, though, it's not my promotion. It's not the beginning and the end. My promotion is there to make money as much as possible, not lose the company money, but to both bring in young talent that might end up being something big someday, and also helping the parent company AEW with the talent it's sit down for some seasoning. I still have 6 days to go until my next show. Right now I've got where I'm running every Tuesday. One thing that was interesting, I didn't mess at all with the road agents or the referees for that very first show. So let's see how the computer handles it. And I found some wrestlers and some people were very good at it. Gail Kim was great. Gregory Helms, great. But like Kurt Hawkins and Amazing Red, and plugged them in, and you might notice now it just says wrestler. Before it also said wrestler and what's the word I'm looking for? A road agent, like Miss Saban. And I'm not sure how much experience plays into that. I believe in the last game was respect and reputation. That's not what I was trying to do. But perhaps experience plays in, maybe not. It's part of the learning curve for me with this. Anyway, to get back to what I had here, thinking of this upcoming show. So, we've got to find somebody to team with Kane. Find someone that I can have Connor dominate, like a 3 or 4 minute, very one-sided showing, which opens up wrestlers who are lower on the stamina side. They're older. I mean, ideally it'd be somebody that's older because you got that name to build on. And within the game, it had Bob Holly listed as about to retire or whatever. So I always bring him in. And who it is I bring in really isn't as important. It's just having Connor win decisively, because the idea is to have Connor as far away from the ascension is possible. This is the new refocused Connor's got Alicia Fox as his spokesperson. And I don't know how it's going to go with Alicia Fox as a manager. We'll find out. So I need somebody for Connor to put over, and that's where I'd written in, like Shamrock. If I've been there for like a 3 or 4 minute match, if I bring him as a one-off, that's not a bad way to go, I don't think. Chavo Guerrero Jr., also a possibility. As for Sabu and Bob Holly. But I'm not bringing all 4 in. I mean, I'll pick one of those. Or at least hopefully be able to pick one of those, and that'll be who I'll probably go with there. I could go with somebody a bit higher up, but the idea is that it'll be Connor winning decisively and quickly. And that's not going to help a lot of these guys. That would be much more valuable for me in a spot where I can use them in a longer match. Make sure I scroll up far enough so this actually appears on the screen. So I'll have somebody for Connor to beat somebody to team with Kane. Hero just won the world title, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense to have every wrestler on your roster on every show every week. I think that's something that WWE gets itself into a lot of booking trouble with. And not just that, but the people they fly in that never end up working the show. Just the hassle having to travel and go through all the things that wrestlers go through on a regular basis. And that's all things pandemic aside. And you get there and then you're sitting around for 10 hours and they never actually use you. And I'm sure that gets old quick. So the Colognes, they lost on the last show. They lost in the de facto semifinals to Hawkins and Ryder, but they actually looked a lot better the way it played out. I realized they got a 55 score, but that was really more the way the computer assigned the blame. It was more towards Hawkins and Ryder versus Primo and Epico. But as I noted with that sprint title, I will give myself a little bit of latitude as far as if I want to, if I have an upcoming like big event that's not on a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night actually. Like, would I have somebody also defend the sprint title at a pay-per-view on a Sunday? And I'm not quite sure yet. I would think yes, and maybe don't have them defend that title that following Wednesday or Tuesday. A few different possibilities with that. I mean, up to keep Saban strong. I don't want to bury Red, but it didn't go very well for Red on the last show between the fans not being all that happy with him, and then where I had Red as a road agent. It just, and you would think looking at his stats, reputation's 100, 80 respect, even experience 70. And for as long as he's been around, he got in the business very early. So he's 38, but you don't have to be 45 or whatever to be a good road agent. Plus, there's a whole thing of him actually being able to work as well. But this is on the last show where it gave me that warning about the unhappy crowd warning. And I'm not sure if over time the fans will get over it and finally accept them, or if that's a maybe, and it depends on how I function and utilize them with me as the booker. Just trying to get this stuff on the screen where you can see it. This says Zap because when I was going through just trying it out initially, I created a promotion called Zap. It didn't turn out very well. But that's still a file name because I haven't changed it yet. So if you wonder why, that's why it's like that. So, the point with the Colognes was that they made a pretty strong impression. despite the loss, so I think I'm going to start trying to heat them up a bit. Get to the point where them versus FTR would be a viable World Tag Team Championship match. And with ACH, he lost on the last show in the inaugural Sprint Championship, the 10-minute time limit championship match. So I want to have him bounce back with a decisive singles win. So I'll put him in there with Bestie at 666. And another note, because sometimes I say things and I'll say it once in a 6-hour feed or something, and not everybody's going to hear it, of course. But the way I lay out my designs typically, when I'm playing this, just when it's just me playing, when I'm not streaming, I'll list the wrestler or the team first that I plan on having win. But like if I thought I was going to have Leo Rush and Fred Yehi go to a time limit, I would immediately get rid of the VS and have it in there to put like TL draw. Kind of like the way I would do it. Now in this case, it's going to be Leo Rush getting the win. Yehi didn't get quite as much respect as I thought he deserved in the popularity. But that's okay. It's up to me to try and get him there myself. So I didn't use No Way Jose in the last show. And we were discussing last night about with No Way Jose and how he could have easily been an opening act for years and years and years on either NXT or WWE house shows, because it's a great way to warm up the crowd. And particularly because it's not like WWE's going to let somebody go out there and do a bunch of crazy dives or a main event style match in the opener. So if they're not going to let you do that, at least have some fun with it. Because I saw it work in person, the NXT Nashville War Memorial Auditorium. Sometimes I think I'm fortunate that I don't watch much at all from main roster WWE. So like my lasting memory of a lot of these wrestlers that now I read about or I hear about is like, oof. And I think of them as how they were in NXT. And then for the bulk of them, it's better that way. It says P, that's pre-show. I was thinking more of a push to Barrington Hughes, but the problem is he's a 19 popularity in the Southeast. He's got a couple of 7s, and that's it. So for now, it makes sense to keep them on the pre-show. And my company does take ability into consideration, perhaps more than most, but you still have to have the popularity to go with it, make it work, at least from what I've seen. There's also the issue that my product is being broadcast by way of YouTube, which didn't exactly give me huge numbers initially, but I had 12 people on the show, and not because of some social distancing thing. It was just that's all I could draw was 12. And that's going to be yet another thing to get to learn about with this particular element of the game is how quickly will it take me up from a nobody unknown to people being interested, especially running the same region over and over. So I'm going to stick with the Southeast until it nudges me to do otherwise. Just because what I've read, that tends to be the most important thing. For something like a child promotion, I'm not going to try and reach international tier. My parent company can do that. But to go quickly through what I had laid out, it's a little bit different with Jimmy Lloyd and Josh Briggs. Because let me find that list of some of this a little bit scattershot. You can see the. Although if you really want to see some crazy notes, when I was a TV news producer, I had like a sheet of paper, and by the end of my shift, you wouldn't. Anybody else looking at it wouldn't like heads or tails of it, because I'm putting this stuff together in my head and putting a newscast together. Talk about stressful. But point being is that everybody's got their own system, and that tends to work for me. So in the last show, I had Lloyd and Briggs as a team. They put over Goddard's and Kenny Doan. I guess it's worth mentioning as well some of the rules that AEW set down for me. Nothing particularly problematic. I'm not allowed to hire any brawlers, and I'm not allowed to hire any comedy wrestlers, which is fine. There's also the rule that I have to have at least one match that's storytelling, and then another that has to be one of these, either Wild Brawl, Mayhem, or Car Crash. I think I'm going to do, considering I'm not allowed to hire brawlers, I think it makes more sense to maybe not use the Wild Brawl. A little bit of an overlap there with the management mandates out of Jacksonville in this game. Okay, there's the, scoot this up a little bit, make sure it makes the screen. That was not what I was trying to do. Ryan Nova with a question mark. See, I see that and I think let's look at the list of wrestlers. Instead, it's workers. That's all part of the learning curve. And I will bring in Filthy Tom at some point. It's funny, I mean, he's at the very top. He's got the quotation marks. And in some ways, it would make sense to have him come in to team up with Cain Velasquez with their respective mixed martial arts background. But whoever I'm bringing in for the spot's going to be doing the job. And so why go to that now? Because it's not that expensive the way this is set up here. I mean, $1,300 is about standard what I have for most of my talent. In fact, it's probably a good time to demonstrate that. And flying through here and trying to slow it down. A local to global. No, for me, I'm running as a child promotion. So it's where it's AEW's in the game as itself. And I created this as my developmental promotion. These logos I threw together about 90 seconds per, and just trying to get something created there in paint.net. So launch is mine, and that's the all men's promotion. Now it's not like I don't have any women, on the staff. I've got Gail Kim as a road agent. She did very well on the last show, and then as part of what was sent down as developmental for wrestlers that AEW wants to get some seasoning, they included Alicia Fox as a manager. So I'm going to work that into it here. So let me see. It's worth pulling up, I guess, the size. So insignificant is, as you would imagine, as low as it gets. And so we have to start with 0. And you would think that a company that has the Revival and a lot of other known talents would be higher than that, but the way the game's set up, that's just not the way it works. Sharp, the AI went ahead and hired Allison Danger to be both the booker and the CEO. Whereas for me, I'm the booker, and AEW hired Dave Prazak to be my CEO. One of those kind of funny things the game picks. And while I could have Dave on my broadcast team, I've utilized him as like someone to come out and announce the card, warm up the crowd, to get everybody fired up for the upcoming 2-hour show. Although in this case, because I did that for week 1, that worked out just fine. I didn't put all the little angles stuff in this launch TV number 1. And that's just like the number of episodes that I've had of this weekly television I've got to pretend is a weekly special event. The way that makes you do it. I mean, ideally, eventually I want to have it where it's going to be similar to the Memphis territory USWA kind of loop. I can't exactly replicate that for a number of reasons, but that's the idea at least. I'm sure it'll be more than just the Evansville or Memphis, Nashville, Louisville. So Danhausen and Trip Cassidy. Let's look at Ryan Nova. That's right. Okay, well, I would need to sign him. I guess that's why I wrote him here in the question marks around him, if I can get him. So that'll be the third X to fill in. And the X is similar to how, if you look on most Japanese wrestling, but I'm thinking of New Japan's, the way they write it, where if it's a mystery partner, somebody to be determined, instead of a question mark or whatever, it's an X. And that works out pretty well. Although I have to mention, in the Thunderverse, the alternate world game mod that was really good for the previous game in this series, Total Extreme Wrestling 2016. So I got distracted there for a second. Start telling one story and the booker in my head starts to want to go ahead and get to the card. But I guess first things first, because an offer has to be decided upon, and then once that's set, there'll be at least a couple of days of a turnaround, so they have to decide. They probably will say yes once I reach a negotiation that they'll go along with. So it doesn't matter with Nova, with Ryan Nova. I just need somebody to come in and be able to do the honors in the pre-show first match. So something that's been a major upgrade is being able to have it where it's just ongoing. I don't have to give somebody that's on a pay-per appearance basis a downside guarantee. I never liked that element of it in 2016, and it's been very much a positive not have to worry about that. Now, if I start signing guys to exclusive deals, like written contracts, that yes, at that point it makes sense to have a downside guarantee. But the way this is set up, that's not really the way to do it. And I could have it where it's just ongoing, but I'm just looking for the next card to use them there as a one-off. No, I could have it where it's just indefinite. I keep using them. But then that puts the onus on me to be the one to say, okay, we're not going to book you anymore. Essentially part ways for them. Because that can end up making them angry, versus if you know going in, okay, it's a one-off, you're just helping us out for the show, then that's the idea. The months, I'll put ongoing because that doesn't really matter. Ultimately, the idea is that presuming he signs before the show on Tuesday, I'll be able to use them in that spot. And if that won't work, I'll find somebody else that'll work cheap, and we'll figure it out. All right. So I'm gonna make a note here. For O&O means one night only. Not quite the same as what the game constitutes as a one night only when you go to a certain region and you book somebody there that, because they're local, you can book them as a one-off and it's easy. But just for my own notes, I'm writing it this way for that one. All right. And really the next, I don't see Ryan Nova having some sort of major problem working with me or delaying for a week. I could offer a second person, but at that point, if I get to that level of complication, I'll figure something else out. Suddenly, Dan Housen or Trip Cassidy, one of those two, have to be on the outside looking in, trying to do a singles match. But I say that because I think it's going to end up being Ryan Nova that signs. Now, as far as having somebody like tag team partner for Kane, I need them to be able to come in and lose decisively. You know, it's against like Gulak. That's where they've. This is the storyline advancement, the one storyline I set up with episode number 1, and you'll see that I've got ideas for this Cody Hall and Big Cass. I don't know how that feud's gonna be, but this will get it going. And really, I probably should have had it for this first show because the music resets. So if I would have already had that feud going, then what do you think about this? Well, I guess instead of just talking about it, I can look it up. Actually, I think what it was, I just had Big Cass in a debut match, but somebody he did not click well with, which explains, at least in part, the 37. But now that I've got it, I'll have to double check to make sure I actually have it in the storyline category, which is... I'm a fan of the Killing the Business skin that I'm using here, which I'm considering I'm using Gary Wooder's Killing the Business mod. It seems fitting. Just the one of the weird things, that lime green, kind of tough to read at times. And a positive with having to run as a event on a weekly basis versus a TV show. With events, the fans have a higher expectation for volume of time spent on matches than when and if I get a TV show, then I'll have to pare it back a bit. But for now in particular, it works out pretty well. The mute button, I was starting to yawn. Not bored with the product, just... Alright, well, let's get the partner bring in for Cain Velasquez. So someone to go up against Slater and Gulak. I'm tempted to go Eddie Edwards. The only reason I wouldn't would be if I wanted to bring him in as a separate thing, like under his own ongoing handshake deal. But in this case, I don't know that. I mean, I'm not even sure how much that would matter. It's one match. It's an important spot, that semifinal spot, especially with a main event with Hawkins and Ryder. My phone started buzzing. I thought, what in the world's at this hour? There's some notification about a mobile game. Nothing important. Alright, so you can tell here the people have not debuted yet because there are some that have a gimmick. The way this is set up, you don't have to have a gimmick for anybody. But if you do, that gimmick will come into play, either good or bad. And so I tried to go through as far as making just no gimmicks for a lot of the crew already. That, you know, but some of these guys like Hallowick and Evil Incarnate, yeah, okay, I'll stick with that. More gimmickal look kind of guys. Now with No Way Jose, and if this were real life, he couldn't be No Way Jose because that's a WWE owned name. But you could have the same basic idea. I'm just sticking with the name because I don't know what name he would use. And so there's also the cases of these lower guys. PB Smooth, Josh Briggs, Donovan Danhausen, and Jimmy Lloyd. Some of them have already debuted, but you can see the ones where, like with PB Smooth, I don't know if his badass gimmick is gonna work or not, and it would be easy enough for me if he were my own hire that I could have him just work without a gimmick, not worry about it. But this being developmental, that is, you develop these skills and find out if something works. If it does, great. If not, you can adjust it and tweak it so you make it work. And if it doesn't at that point, then you never have to worry about that hitting the main roster. Save yourself a problem or two. Of course, it's different opinions versus what my goals and ideas are versus what the parent companies are. And ultimately, my purpose is to help them be as ready as possible for the big spot, big spotlight. All right. So with all of that, let's go ahead and Eddie Edwards. So, in the old days, in this series, if somebody had a written contract, that's it, forget it. But it's almost like how it is with the franchise tag in the NFL, for anyone familiar with that, where there's a regular contract and now there's the exclusive contract. With this one, he's still under contract with Impact. It's very easy to go to, in this case, Eddie's listing, or whoever it is that's on your radar. Your schedule, say, okay, this is Wednesday of week 2, so yesterday, I guess, Impact had a show. And so I couldn't use them there. I would not be able to use them there, and then I don't have any Saturday shows. Right now, I'm just doing the weekly Tuesday show. If at some point that gets large enough where I can start looking elsewhere, okay, then maybe I'll do a higher end standalone event. But for now, that's what I'm going with. negotiate. As much as I hate to make it just a one appearance, in this case, bring him in for that one show and then maybe in a month or two think about bringing him in. Because the problem is if I sign too many people, first of all, AEW is going to get irritated over that, I'm sure. But then on top of that, plus there's wrestlers that they might want to be targeting. But more importantly, if I end up being a money loser for them to a large degree and they don't feel they're getting their money's worth out of me, then I will be in significant trouble. Alright, so one of the rules that AEW has for me in this game is that merchandising sales can be no higher than 10% for anyone I hire. Because Eddie is... Oh, come on. They are southeast. Same place I'm based. Now why I couldn't find that on this screen, I guess I could have moved it there. So that's part of the learning curve. And again, so one off. So. And this is where the whole ironclad clause comes into play. If you want to have something truly locked down that's working for you and you only. Now that you have to pay a premium for that. And at this point, my promotion's so small that's not even a consideration. So with the one appearance, this is the one-off. So we'll offer him a little bit more money. $14.25. Try $14.50. I mean, that's Eddie, pal. That's something that corporate mandates, 10% tops. You're working one night. How much merch are you going to be selling, really? $14.99. But I'm going to have zero qualms about making you do the honors. Oh, come on. The 56 popularity is nice, but there are other options, which is why I try to go through with this before the feed starts and say, okay, what are possibilities? Plural. I bet TJ Wilson be a good road agent. Can't quite book him for that since he's with WWE, and if he weren't, he still would see me as too small a promotion to work with. TJ Perkins, no problem. Through the schedule and the way this mod was set up, it showed like events that were planned for like right now, like in May. NBA Finals, not this year. But ultimately with this, we're talking about Tuesday of week 3. So you go here, June, Tuesday week 3. Smooth sailing. So it's less expensive, certainly, than what I originally was going to be looking at. Here we go, the higher cut of the merch stuff again. 1225. Dude, I'm trying. Come on, TJP. There we go. So $12.99. Oh, I just messed up, didn't I? I got it for unlimited. Although maybe that'd be. That was. I should have checked that one closer, shouldn't I? Well. I mean, in theory, I could bring him in for that one show and then just part ways with him. But the nice thing, if I've got him hanging around, it's pretty stout. Alright, so that will allow me to bring in, potentially bring in TJP. I'll have to put there are a couple of ways I can go. No, we didn't get Eddie Edwards. Just offer TJP. In theory, I could get somebody like Austin Aries. Just because you look at his skills, you have him cut a promo about working the match or any number of options. So Aries, we'll see if he might not be willing, I don't know. There's no warning over here, but we'll see. Because he's based in the Southwest, at least in this game. I'll have to handle the travel. This truly is a one-off here, so hopefully he'll go for it and then one step closer. And again, if I try to go up, here's the note, the AEW block, and that's why I have to stick it at 10%, which is fine. Just that's the rule. $13.50. Well, if I have to go a little bit high, that's fine. $14.99. At some point, it's going to be cost prohibitive. He's also getting the travel costs taken care of. Oh, there we go. Creative control clause. I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons, or one of the things that would keep me from going with Austin Aries is that if he had a clause like that, then good luck trying to get him to be the one that's doing the job in that semi-main event. So we're just going to pass on that for now. You can offer TJP, but it's more than just a one-off, which means I can just wait until next week's show. Until next week's, I guess, is the Tuesday of week 3. Boys, I don't have to use them right away, but if I need to, I got the option. All right, so Austin Aries didn't quite work. Gresham has a crazy busy schedule, but it worked out, if I read it correctly. Not Coachman, no. He was big Thomas anyway. As you can tell, Jonathan Gresham has plenty of opportunities. ROH, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Revolution Pro, even Warrior Wrestling. Then you go to his profile and you look at his schedule. That's what I care about right there, is that Tuesday of week 3. It's projecting it would cost me $1,300, which is fine. Tri-State. Same mistake twice. $13.99. Dude, it's one appearance. $14.99. Yes. So I'll make a note that offered. There's TJP, and then I can put Gresham. Oh, I know. One night only. Similar to how it's been in prior games in this series, if you click on somebody that you've already gone into negotiations with, it will let you know right here near the top. All right. The next thing to do is going to be finding somebody that can put Connor over in 3 or 4 minutes, which gives me a lot more latitude than I normally would have. $600, that's not bad. He's Midwest, so I guess I'll have to cover his travel costs. So that's 600, one appearance. I don't think that's going to be a problem there, Bob Holly. How much do you know about our company? I'd love to be able to run house shows and get some of those younger wrestlers talent, but you have to be at least a medium-sized company to get that. So let's see. No. I love the ongoing option. It's great. In this case, really, I just need it as a one-off. house shows, so it's not like that's a big promise to have to worry about making. I can handle it. There we go. Offered Bob Holly. Is Ryan Nova, who I've made an offer to already for just a one-off. So he's going to retire. So all the more reason to have him take a rather one-sided loss. So it's not like he has to worry about trying to come back and pop the territory a year from now to be retired. All 12 of the fans that I drew. Alright, I think we've been through this before, left with the Tomatonga and Shima. I like that it gives you all this information here about somebody on the profile. It's a nice little extra touch they've thrown in. I have to remember to look down here to make sure that any of these are not lit up. I'm used to them being in a different spot from the last game. But as I noted before, the longer I play it and the more I play it, the more comfortable I get with it, and it starts to make sense. So this game actually brought back the Ring of Honor Pure Championship, as had been discussed. I think when it gets to the start of week 3, I'm starting to hit the wall exhaustion-wise. So we'll at least get through a few more days here, because I don't have the next show until Tuesday of next week, and I'll double check that. Hopefully this will be updated for us. At least not all zeros at the start of the next month, although we won't get to that tonight. Basically with this, I'm looking for a wrestler that may be on the open market or just hit the open market. That may be the one time you hear about it. Or they're in negotiations and it somehow leaks out. You can try and swoop in with a better deal. That was not easy to do, though, in 2016 and prior versions of the game. And I think seeing how it's more advanced with just about everything, with contracts and things of that nature, that distract all this information here on the screen. Alright, let's jump ahead. And hey, the scoops on Jay Lethal. How about that? New Japan and Rev Pro parting ways. New Japan's going isolationist. Or playing nice with warrior wrestling. It is funny with the Japanese wrestlers how many are jumping from one place to the other. Well, I guess that's good news with my parent company being AEW. They've got a clearance in YouTube Asia. Swamada Noah. Team Filthy cleaning house. I get that feeling that this escalated quickly. Snubbed. Ring of Honor trying to sign some talent, understandably so. Jake Lee jumping from All Japan to Noah. Finally, AEW is finally starting to bring in people to work for Sharp, which is the all-women's promotion. That's one of 2 developmental territories, with me controlling the other, is Launch Wrestling. It had nothing to do with these signings. I'm glad that the computer handles it properly. That was something I wasn't sure about with this being so new in particular. I'm not even sure how you pronounce that one. I know what lateral means, but epicondylitis? Yeah, we need a pronouncer on that. I'm sure it's on here. I seem to recall having trouble finding somebody's health status. It's just a history of injuries. Or no, wait a minute. Oh, okay. That's a tough one for Atlantis Jr. Very precise. 1 year, 2 months, 3 weeks. Brutal. Oh, out of intermission, actually read the whole thing through. Noah just raiding like crazy. Okay, so Ryan Nova. here and take the question marks away from Brian Nova. This will take us to Sunday. And this is going to have to be it for this episode. Exactly 30,000 fans. Look at them putting Ishii on top. I like it. Tanahashi versus Sonata and Minoru Suzuki. I don't like those multi-man kind of matches typically, but in real life that could actually be great, even today. These pre-show matches. Oof. Rhino and RVD like it's 1999 ECW. I wonder how long it'll be till we see this in real life. Or is Lesnar unwilling to slum it over NXT? Although in that last Warrior Wrestling show that Jake Atlas worked, he lost because of being distracted by Frank the Clown. Not the finish I was anticipating. This is working out well. They're hiring the women. Karen Jerry getting in there. Saw her in person that I mentioned before, going to the first ever Global Force Wrestling show in Jackson, Tennessee. But it was interesting because I saw her at one point talking with some fans, so I just kind of made my way over, listened. And you know how with some, like with any group of people, you have certain people that aren't as appropriate or as, you know, act the way they should around a famous person just because they're well known. Point being, she's absolutely gorgeous in real life too, so I'm trying the number lock key. All right. Okay, so this would be another person that AEW, the parent company, would sign with the intention of sending down to launch to improve. Rampage Brown getting after him in progress. Alright, so this will advance us to week 3, Monday. They were hitting odd switches like Muda. showing up in Noah. 33,000 fans for Backlash. At this point, I'm about to just fall asleep. This is later than I intended, but ultimately, it's that sad news about Hana Kimura. Ended up slowing me up on the start because I was reading all these write-ups and tweets from wrestlers that were obviously very sad to lose her. I imagine tomorrow night I'll be giving this another go. I'm trying to get an earlier start time so I'm not having to fight and nodding off. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. This has been episode number 5 of Lou Pickney Plays Total Extreme Wrestling 2020. Thanks for watching.